So thank you, Madison, for agreeing to do this for us. And to start with, I was hoping that you could introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your journey in audiology so far, and what you're doing today.
Yeah, so as I'm sure you can hear by the sound of my voice, I traveled over from Canada to the UK, and that's actually when I started my training in audiology in 2015, and I graduated in 2017. And since then, I've kind of been all over the shop with my experience in audiology. I started out doing private clinical work, then I shifted into research audiology. And then I decided to go and start my PhD. And then I've recently decided to come back into clinical work in a community NHS clinic. So yeah, lots of little bits all around.
Great. What I really wanted to ask you today is if there's a single event that you think has shaped your communication style, perhaps today, and how?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in my first year of clinical training, which was with you, especially at the start, I felt I was so awkward with patients, especially if there was an emotional response to something. I felt like I just wanted to stick to, the red flag questions, tick all the boxes and just get through it as quickly as possible to move on to the history. And I would always get very thrown if someone kind of brought up something emotional. So if they had something else going on in their life, whether it was another illness or trauma or something like that, I would always try and avoid it at all costs. I would kind of acknowledge it and say, I'm so sorry. Can you tell me about tinnitus? And kind of try and move away from it. I did not want to engage in the conversation at all. And I think there was a few patients that I saw with you where that was kind of the case, and you would have to kind of step in and kind of deal with that emotional aspect. And there's one patient in particular who she had quite an emotional reaction to a hearing loss in her one ear. And I can't remember what the cause of the hearing loss was, but it was sudden and it resulted in almost no residual hearing. And I remember you had kind of given me my instructions of what to do with her, kind of repeat audiogram XYZ, and I was left to do that. And so when I went to go test the one ear, she was quite hesitant. She didn't want me to test it because, it was a dead ear. There was no point. Nothing was going to change. But I kind of took the approach, well, my supervisor insisted I do both ears, so I have to do both ears, and kind of cut the conversation and did both ears. And she probably wasn't happy about that, but she did agree to it. I didn't do it against her permission. And she did return, and I saw her independently after that. And on that occasion, I kind of decided, I don't really want to go through that again. She doesn't want to go through it again. And I kind of listened to her a bit more because it was just me and her at that point. I didn't feel like it was being watched, I guess. I don't know. And I kind of agreed with her and said, you know what, there's no point in doing PPA for that right ear. If that's not what you want, we won't do it. And then after that, she just kind of, I think, appreciated that and kind of trusted me so much more after that. I mean, her hearing aids were quite old and not providing her with the best support, and she never wanted to kind of move forward with new ones. She wanted to stick with what she knew, but once I kind of established that trust with her, she was kind of, okay, I could consider getting some new hearing aids. If they're going to benefit me, I can at least try them. And, from that point forward, we were pretty good together.
Because what seemed to make the difference for you was just kind of adapting things a little bit, but making sure that she really felt heard, she really felt listened to. And do you think that's something that you've taken forward in your practice today? I mean, your context now is quite different. You're doing a lot of kind of NHS work. So is that something that you're able to maintain as you've made that transition across sectors, and how are you doing it?
Yeah, so I think definitely it has made it made such a big difference when I was working as a research audiologist, because in that setting, I was doing domiciliary visits with elderly people with memory problems. And I think the biggest benefit to those participants wasn't, not necessarily the treatment from the trial, but more the social aspect, because a lot of them lived at home, had no social interaction, and we were kind of the big social event for the week. And so a lot of the times they kind of, we got through what we needed to get through for the trial, but then they just kind of wanted to sit and have a chat, or, kind of vent their frustrations at various things. And I think historically, if I had gone right into that setting, I would have been so uncomfortable with it, because they talked about things that upset them that had nothing to do with audiology. And yeah, I think I was able to kind of take that listening and kind of just support them through that. And it did improve their care, because I knew more about them. I could listen to them, we could have a conversation. And I think they were overall enjoying it more. And, it is such a learning process still, I think, adapting it to different settings, because I had never worked in the NHS until recently. So now I'm trying to kind of take that approach and apply it in an NHS setting, which is met with a lot of difficulty sometimes just because of the time constraints. So it is something that I'm trying to not, abandon. I'm still trying to, let the patient be heard, have actual conversation, not just ticking boxes. But I'm learning to do it under a lot of time constraints. But so far, I think it's turning out to work well. So I'm quite happy with it.